Greetings Ventures, it's Lauren Gaming, and welcome to my Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon on the Side, sort of Oratoria, Volume 6, light novel review, and that's a handful. But first things first, Loki Familia represent. First things first, I need to go ahead and apologize to you guys because I said that this light novel review would come out shortly after its release. Now it's back in the end of June, and we are, the end of October, the day before Volume 7 of Sword Oratoria comes out, and here I am making this review. So let me just go ahead and apologize for that first. A lot of stuff was happening during that time. There was the Grand Day event and DanMemo episode Ryu's light novel came out around that time, as well as Volume 11 of the main series, and this just got forgotten in that heap of stuff that was happening then, and I just did not get back to this. So now I'm doing it now. And when Volume 7 comes out tomorrow, I'll be sure to get that review out a lot quicker than 4 months later. I promise. And for those of you guys unfamiliar with the way I structure the light novel reviews, the first part of this video will be a spoiler-free review, so I'll just be generally talking about my opinion on the book itself. If you have not read it, you'll be good to go watching that first half. And the second half, I will timestamp and then leave another timestamp to skip to the end of the video where I talk about some stuff. But that latter half of the video will be where I discuss the specific things that happen in the novel itself, and some speculation on stuff happening after that. Of course, not too much speculation going on because Volume 7 comes out tomorrow, so some of my questions will be answered then. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this review started. And of course, Sword Oratoria Volume 6 is written by the author of the main series, Fujino Omori, and the Sword Oratoria series is illustrated by Kiyotaka Haimura, and the original character designs are of course credited to Suzuhito Yasuda, who illustrates the main series of light novels. And as always, this series is translated and published by Yen Press in North America. And to give a brief synopsis on Volume 6, after the events of Volume 5, Loki Familia follows the trail of where the Viola monsters are, and the evils, and all the stuff connected to the underbelly, and that investigation leads them into the port city of Merin, which is outside of Oratoria. So Volume 6 of Sword Oratoria is one of those rare cases where the story is actually taking place outside of Oratoria, the city, and the dungeon itself. We're actually outside of it for this one. And anytime the story takes us outside of the city of Oratoria and the dungeon itself, it's always a breath of fresh air to me, because it just goes and shows us that the world of DanMachi is bigger than just the central city of Oratoria. There's way more cities out there, way more countries out there, and that's the other thing that also pops up in this particular volume. We also get to see the background information of where the Amazon sisters come from, Tiona and Tione Hairute. We get to learn about the continent they came from and their history, because their past comes back to haunt them during their time in the port city of Merin, but I'm not going to get into the specifics there, because of course that will be saved for the spoiler discussion part of this video. But back to the Amazon twins, this particular volume is focused on these two sisters right here. The previous volumes of Sword Oratoria were usually focused around either Ides or Lafia, but this time they take more of a backseat in the story, and we get to learn a lot more about these Amazon twins right here, and deservedly so, because they are pretty prominent characters in Loki Familia, and it's just great learning more about them because I love their characters. Tiona especially. Tiona shines a lot here in this volume. It just confirms my opinion of her being the best Amazon. And she's just a delight. She's just a joy. Her smile is so powerful, and you'll see why when you read this novel if you haven't already. But in this novel, you will of course learn about the relationship between the twins, and you get to see more of Loki Familia bonding together and how they carry out their investigation in the port city of Merin. And we also learn quite a bit more about the lore in DanMachi, because some of that stuff is referenced during that investigation, and it's always interesting to learn about whenever we can, learning more about the past. Even though this volume mainly focuses around the Amazon twins, we really get to see how all of Loki Familia bonds together and supports one another in this volume particularly. We get to see Ai struggling a bit when it comes to emotions, and both Finn and Bates had some particularly standout moments that will make you really cheer for him, because man, their moments in this volume is just wonderful. It's great. And if you've been keeping up with the main series of the novels, particularly Volume 7, you're going to be pretty excited to read this one because quite a few characters from Volume 7 in DanMachi's main series show up here. And it's good to expand on those characters too, because we didn't get to see too much of them in Volume 7 because it was pretty much a self-contained story, and most of the characters introduced in Volume 7 don't really get too much time later. So it's nice to see them have some time here in Sword Art Oratoria Volume 6. But as for the story that Volume 6 tells, I really enjoyed it a lot because I love learning more about the Amazon twins, their past, and it's quite the brutal past, to be honest. If you feel any connection to the Amazon twins whatsoever, if you like them one bit, then you're going to feel pretty sad for them, and really happy with the way things pan out towards the end of this novel. If you really wanted to see Eyes or Lafia shine a bit here, you're not going to see that too much. Like I mentioned before, they're more like background characters in this particular volume, but Sword Art Oratoria is really the story of Loki Familia, not necessarily all about Eyes, all about Lafia. Now the main plot to Sword Art Oratoria Volume 6, or I should say the main reason why they're in married in the first place, it doesn't advance the plot too much in the grand scheme of things, because this was more of a light novel to really highlight the Amazon twins and bring their past to light and develop them. So I do appreciate that. We'll probably see more of the plot developing in Volume 7 because with the clues they get here in Volume 6, it's going to lead them right back to the dungeon. And I won't say anything more on that specifically. I'll leave that in the spoiler part of this review. But overall, guys, I've really enjoyed Volume 6 of Sword Art Oratoria. Learning about the Amazon twins, as I keep saying, was the real highlight for me. Seeing those awesome character moments for Tione, Tiona, Bait, and Finn. They're all outstanding in this particular novel. It's really great to see them take the spotlight over Eyes and Lafia because they really need their time to shine. They're all high levels in Loki Familia, so it's nice to see them get their moments here. And I can't just talk about the story itself in here because the illustrations by Haimura are really well done in this novel. Bait has a pretty cool illustration here, as well as all the illustrations with the Amazon twins, I believe. They're really amazing. Haimura's just outdoing themselves all the time. But overall, Volume 6 of Sword Art Oratoria was a fun read for me. Just learning about the Amazon twins, learning a bit more about the deeper lore in DanMachi, and seeing those other characters having a chance to shine in this novel really brings this novel ahead for me. Volume 6 of Sword Art Oratoria is definitely within my top 3 favorite novels in Sword Art Oratoria, which is kind of a funny thing to say because there's only 6 so far, but it's definitely one of the top 3 for me in terms of content for Sword Art Oratoria. But definitely a worthwhile read. It seems the way that Omori Sensei structures his books, it really just keeps ramping up as more and more you get into the book, and he just does endings for the novels really, really well. They're always exciting to read towards the end of the novel, and then you're like, oh, that's it, and they have to wait for the next one. So thank you guys for watching the spoiler-free parts of this review. If you don't want to see spoilers, go ahead and click the timestamp in my video description, and that'll lead you to the end of this video, skipping past the spoiler discussion part. But for those of you who want to see the spoiler discussion, or have already read Volume 6, go ahead and keep watching. Now, I'll try to do my best to discuss these spoiler points in chronological order with the book, but forgive me if I go around a bit with the stream of consciousness that I might be doing here. So at the very beginning of Volume 6, it really takes place right after their expedition that happened in Volume 4, and Loki is updating everyone's statuses, and we can see that Tiona, Tione, and Bait all become level 6, so the same level as Eyes, Finn, Gareth, and Reveria, so Loki Familia is looking really powerful. And one other thing is that Lafia has the potential to level up to level 4, but Loki insists on holding her back, so her magic stat can be a little higher. And that kind of explains us a little bit of how the status system works in DanMachi. So when one of your skills reach a particular level, you are eligible for a level up. And the only thing that needs to happen after that is being able to do like a heroic feat. In this case, it was the expedition that happened in Volume 4. But Loki does insist on holding Lafia back because even though Lafia can level up, her magic stat is not like all the way maxed out to like 999. And that explains us how the stats work a little bit in the world because think of it this way, each level is like a cookie jar, and when that cookie jar can be like 2/3 full, you can move on to the next cookie jar. But that's still only 2/3 full. So Lufia can add more magic skill points as a level 3 before going into level 4. So she has like a full level 3 jar. So if Lufia does wait until that jar is full at level 3 and then she becomes level 4, her magic will be stronger than someone else that just got level 4 and did not complete or not fill up that container all the way. And that's what Loki is trying to do, making sure that Lufia maxes out her potential as a mage. And of course, we got to talk about the port city of Marin. I really like the city itself. It's nice to have like that port city feel, going around the shops, looking at the fishermen. Njord is in here, a new god has been introduced. If you played the DanMemo game or read episode Ryu, you'll recognize Njord from there. But he's a fun character, of course. We find out what he's mixed up in later on in the novel. But for the most part, he's pretty cool. He really cares about his familia and the people there because he only did what he did to protect his familia and their way of life through fishing. And of course, at the beginning of the novel, when they go to the port city, Loki initially only brings all the females as an excuse to see them in swimsuits, while also carrying out the investigation, of course. And we get to see some particularly funny moments with Eyes because we find out she can't swim. We are also introduced to a newer character in Loki Familia, Alicia. She is an elf, and this is the first time we've really seen her prominent in the novel. I mean, she has a full-on color illustration in the beginning of the book, so it's nice to see another character in Loki Familia. And we can't talk about this novel without addressing the big thing that happens here, and that is the introduction of Kali Familia. Kali Familia is from the peninsula of Telskira. I think I'm saying that right. Names are hard, guys, and it's funny because if it was just completely Japanese, I would know exactly how to say it, because once you know like how to say the syllables in Japanese, you can say them. But Telskira, I think that's how it's said, but that's the peninsula that Kali Familia is from, of course. And we are, of course, introduced to another set of Amazon twins, pretty much Tiona and Tione's rivals, Bosch and Argana. And they are actually both level 6, which is pretty almost insane to me because it's really hard to get Exilia outside of Orario because it just takes so much longer having to like you get experience from doing a lot of things like killing monsters, but there's not many monsters outside of Orario. In this case, the country of Telskira, they are forced to fight to the death between those Amazons from birth, and that's just quite, it's such a brutal thing to read about, knowing that from birth they are forced to fight one another to the death. And that is the life that Tiona and Tione had to live through until they were able to leave Kali Familia and eventually join Loki Familia. But quickly going back to how Bosch and Argana are level 6, strictly from just fighting other Amazons to the death, it also makes me wonder how many other high-level adventurers are there out there outside of Orario? We know of at least one, someone that was mentioned to be able to rival Otter in power, so they had to at least be level 7, and I wonder when they're going to show up. I'm not sure if they already showed up in the Japanese releases, and I don't want to know if they showed up in the Japanese releases yet, because I want to experience the story the way the author intended it to be experienced, and that's by reading the novels. I don't want to see a summary, I don't want to see any future points that someone may already know. I don't want to know. I do not want to know. But going back to Tiona and Tione's time in Telskira, we know that they make these little groups where all these Amazons are like in the same kind of room, and they usually fight Amazons outside of the room during those fights to the death. But at a certain point, the person that Tione looked up to ended up being her opponent, and she had to kill her, and that just messed up Tione inside a lot. And Tiona of all people, the happy-go-lucky person that's always smiling, Tiona is the person that goes to Kali and says, if Tione's ever going to fight someone that she's close to, let me fight her. And that just, oh my gosh, Tiona was already my favorite Amazon twin, but that just skyrocketed my opinion. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And thank God that Tiona discovered those books on heroic tales and legends. Thank God for that, because that's what kept up her positive attitude and her smile. Tiona was like that emotional anchor of the twins, and Tione is the one that fed from that emotional anchor and was the one that kind of tried to be like the elder sister and take care of the both of them during your time. So it's nice to see that relationship between Tiona and Tione. Yeah, and speaking of those heroic legends, you know how Belle loves those too, and that just makes me want to see a scene in Oratoria or the main series where Tiona and Belle can just talk about those legends and tales. I really want to see them interact like that. We do get a little bit of that if you played the DanMemo game, the DanMachi mobile game, in the debutante event, and you can actually still view that with the event viewer in the game if you haven't played that game before. You can see moments like that between Tiona and Belle, where she realizes that Belle loves those stories too, and she just starts to try and talk about them. And it's really a great moment between those two characters. And of course, in the light novel itself, we know that Tione will fight Argana, and then Tiona fights Bosch. And even though Tiona's fight ends with Finn basically coming in and saving her, it really does show you Tione's character. Like, you usually think of her as as the elder sister, and kind of obsessing over Finn, but you really see how weak she is emotionally because she needs Tiona's smile to stand strong. And during the course of this novel, she really tries to keep to herself and not rely on the family that she has. Like, this is your new family now, Tione. If there's ever trouble, like unlike Kali Familia that never helped you if you were in trouble, come to us. Come to us. And Finn just has a great moment there. But yeah, back to Tiona's fight against Bosch. It was really an exhilarating fight, and just the descriptions that Fujino Omori, the author, gave just made me enjoy that fight so much more. But I really like that fight between Tiona and Bosch, and then Tiona gets that well-deserved victory. It made me really happy for her. Another character that really shines in this novel is Bait against Ishtar Familia. And Ishtar Familia, if you read Volume 7 of the main series, you'll know them. And it's cool they get more time to shine here because after Volume 7, we know that Ishtar Familia is no more. So it's cool to see more involvement with them in the story here in Oratoria. And we get to see Haruhime and Aisha here as well, pre-Volume 7. So it's cool to see that the relationship is pretty much the same there. But back to Bait's shining moment, it's against Pern, who we know is that big Amazon, level 5, being level boosted by Haruhime to level 6 quality stats, and she goes ahead and ambushes Eyes, who does not have her Desperate Sword, and they also disable her magic so she can't use Ariel to help her fight against Pern. And Eyes is pretty much getting almost overpowered here by Pern, and we have to wait until Bait comes in and actually saves the day for Eyes. And it's really cool character defining moment for him, and we know that since he's a werewolf, he's actually stronger under the light of the full moon, so he's pretty much always handicapped whenever they go into the dungeon, because of course there's no moon shining from the sky into the dungeon. So you see Bait's full power here, and Pern actually comments that he's more powerful, he feels more powerful than Eyes. The same Eyes that we almost put like on a pedestal throughout the series. Bait feels more strong than her in this moment. Now, that might not be the case if she's actually using Ariel, but it's probably really close. Really, really close, but awesome moment for Bait there. Yeah, and speaking of the Loki Familia reinforcements, Roll has a line in there mentioning Belle in the Flaming Wasp, and that pretty much ties in that this Volume 6 of Oratoria pretty much takes place almost at the beginning of Volume 6 in the main series, because that Flaming Wasp incident with Belle is the like the bar fight that takes place that sets off the chain of events which leads to the war games in Volume 6 of the main series. So it's nice to see where exactly Oratoria Volume 6 takes place when it comes to the main timeline in the main series. And I said I would try to keep this chronological, but I gotta go back towards the beginning of the novel where Tiona and Tione are investigating the lake, and they dive underwater and find that Leviathan fossil. And the Leviathan, as mentioned in the novel here, was one of the 3 great quests. The first being One-Eyed Black Dragon, the second being Leviathan, and the third being the Behemoth, which you will actually learn more about the Behemoth fight if you ever play through the Grand Day event in DanMemo. And you can, of course, since the event's over, you can go ahead and experience that event with that event viewer in the game. But we also learned that the monster parts from those 3 monsters repels other monsters away, so the entrance to the dungeon from the lake is being sealed by that Leviathan fossil, and that's what Tiona and Tione were investigating, and it was indeed sealed, so there has to be some other entrance to the dungeon if these violas that they're investigating are somehow appearing in Marin, the port city. And that's probably where Volume 7 is going to take us, back to probably towards the dungeon to see where exactly these violas are coming from. And we're probably going to run into the evils as well. And then towards the end of this novel, we see that Ishtar, even though she's been defeated here, of course, by Loki Familia, she was trying to get Kali Familia to help her fight against Freya Familia. We know how that turns out in Volume 7 of the main series, but enough of that. This is something that was not mentioned in Volume 7 of the main series, and Ishtar actually has access to some kind of monster. It's this thing described as having 2 colossal horns with a female figure protruding from its forehead, and that just reminds me of like that spirit monster that Loki Familia encountered during their expedition in Volume 4. So I'm really interested to see where we're going to see that, possibly Volume 7. There's a lot of things I want to see happen in Volume 7. Like, since we know that this takes place towards the beginning of Volume 6 of the main series, I really want to see Aiza's point of view on the dance she has with Belle in Volume 6 of the main series. I really want to know what her thoughts were during that time. And then I want to see Philbus make another appearance because I don't think she was in this at all. No, Amid was here for a little bit in the beginning of the novel. But I don't think Philbus was ever in this novel to begin with in Volume 6, so I hope I see her again in Volume 7, because I really think when Lafia and Philbus are together, it really brings out the best in Lafia's character, because most of the time we see Lafia being down and always being jealous of Belle and trying to catch up with Aiz. So it's nice to see her really have interactions outside of being jelly all the time and being like best friends pretty much with Philbus. It's nice to see the relationship. But yeah, guys, I really enjoyed this novel. I love seeing Tiona and Tione's relationship in this novel, as well as their backstory with Telescura and Kali Familia, and seeing more of Ishtar, seeing Haruhime again, seeing Aisha again for a little bit, and seeing Bait and Finn really shine here. It's really cool to see other characters besides Lafia and Aiz get their time to shine in the Oratoria series. But guys, for future plans, Volume 12 of the main series comes out tomorrow, October 30th, as well as Volume 7 of the Oratoria series, as well as it being the day that the Attack on Titan collaboration event launches in DanMemo, the DanMachi mobile game. So a lot of stuff happening on October 30th, and I'm just going to deem it DanMachi Day because what the heck? What else would it be? DanMachi Day, October 30th. And I took the day off after that because I want to get to reading and playing that event and making content for you guys about all that stuff. And I promise, Volume 7's review of Oratoria will be out well long before Volume 8 is. Whew. Volume 12's review will be out first because it's the main series, guys. I'm really looking forward to what happens after Volume 11, especially after what happens at the end of Volume 11. Whew, what a doozy. But that's what I have planned out, guys. If you like this review or discussion, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel for more DanMachi related content. And don't forget to, in the comments, put how you felt about the novel itself. If there's any stuff like really in there about Volume 6, go ahead and put a spoiler warning there. But anyway, guys, if you want to keep updated what I'm doing, follow me on Twitter and join my Discord for discussions about the game, DanMemo, or the anime, and just stuff in general. We talk about all kinds of anime in my Discord, so everyone's free to be in there. But as always, guys, continue venturing in Mario and the dungeon. This is Lauren Gaming, and I'm signing out.